we get told that we're getting dropped. They dropped Katy Perry, they dropped Jonas Brothers, all of us.
On the way to Coachella.
I'm going to Coachella realizing that we are, done.
Here's OneRepublic's Ryan Tedder.
3-time Grammy winner.
With 5 billion streams on Spotify.
Please welcome to the stage, Ryan Tedder.
We're the #1 unsigned band in the world.
Was it difficult to get traction at first?
Oh my God. We decided to start this band at the best and worst time. The blessing and the curse of apologize. It went #1 everywhere in the world. It absolutely didn't really break us.
Do you know if your songs are going to be a hit before they come out?
We broke the Beatles record in the first week. Then it triggered me to do something reactive that ended up changing the course of our career. Great, then I can say this and you'll be the first to know.
Super excited today because we have once again the one and only Ryan Tedder.
Can't get rid of me.
Can't
get rid of me.
Never.
Sorry.
Since actually the 2007 was the big debut and the crazy success from OneRepublic, which I'm really excited to talk about. But OneRepublic selling over, when I saw the documentary, it says sold over 50 million records. I was going through a bunch of different songwriters and like Justin Traynor, 24 billion streams on Spotify, Julia Michaels, 18 billion. You're at like 30, 35 billion.
No, I'm actually at
way higher.
Sorry to correct you because it's actually in I had to approve my own not press release, but bio. Because anytime you're doing television of any kind or interviews, like for the Today Show, whatever, they always, if you're an artist or any type of notable person at all, your publicist will send you your bio or they'll say, hey, it's been 3 years, we're going to update your bio. So my bio got updated a year and a half ago, and I have in terms of streams or what's it called, cumulative streams or whatever. About 65 billion, 66 billion, something like that as a writer.
That's incredible.
And then OneRepublic's over 100.
Which still...
I'm updating that too. It's over 100 million records.
That's incredible.
Counting Stars is at 50. This sounds like I've just been sitting here reading my own Wikipedia. I swear to God I haven't. But I literally just approved a bio 2 weeks ago. So now I have all these stats that we just got. Counting Stars itself is at 53 million.
So let me try that again.
Yeah. Edit. Now we can start. OneRepublic's over. We can leave all this shit out because it's gonna look like I'm feeding the flame. But I'm about 65 billion streams, and OneRepublic's over 100 million records sold. There you go. Slate.
Well, super excited because we have the one and only Ryan Tedder. And what I'm super excited to talk about today, well, not only 100 million albums sold for OneRepublic, but 65 billion streams, which is just incredible.
Yeah, 100 million records. So that's like singles, albums. I don't know what we're at. We're probably close to 20, but 100 million singles. Just to be correct, because we have not outsold Coldplay or Maroon 5, who are probably at 100 million albums. But yeah, 65 billion. The stream is, it's funny, is like in 5 years' time, we're gonna say like the method of listening to music could change, and like I feel like every 5 years, we have to adjust how we define sales. So like 3 years ago, it was downloads. Over 54 million downloads. And before that was like CDs. And then now records is just the generic term because it just means copy of a song. And like 5 years from now, it could be like, 50 million metapongs.
Because of the metaverse.
Metapong. Yeah.
And also, if I understand this correctly, the most viewed music video by a band. 3.6
I've been told
billion.
that. Yeah, I don't know if that's for. I don't know. What I know is that it's top 5 most watched video of all time.
Incredible.
I don't know if it's most viewed by a band, but it's up there. It's got to be. I mean, I think Maroon 5 Girls Like You has quite a few views too. But yeah, we're up there.
So, for anyone out there who may not know who you are, what are some of the songs that people would know you for?
I could work backwards. I Ain't Worried from Top Gun with my band. Little Nas X, which is about 6 months before that, with That's What I Want. Going backwards, Thomas Rhett, Beer Can't Fix, Lady A, Champagne Night, Bleeding Love, Leona Lewis, Halo, Beyoncé, EXO, Beyoncé, bunch of Maroon 5 stuff, Maps,
Love Somebody,
Ellie Goulding, Burn, Ed Sheeran, Happier, Colby Calais,
just the list goes
yeah,
on.
Gavin
and
DeGraw,
on
Not
and
Over
on.
You. Yeah. I don't want to sit here
I
and
love that
recite my
song, by the way.
discography. Thank you.
It's
He posted
amazing.
it yesterday for the first.
I saw it
follow
on
him.
TikTok.
Yeah, and he randomly I have not heard that song in forever, and he posted it. You may know me from songs such as, and he posted Not Over You, and I was like, oh, that's sick. I forgot about that song.
So one of the biggest songwriters, one of the biggest artists, but I want to go back to the beginning in terms of OneRepublic and the story of OneRepublic, because that's one of my favorite stories.
Oh, wow.
One of my goals is to kind of go behind the scenes of songs that define generations, bands that define generations. And one of them is OneRepublic because I think the story is incredibly impactful for people. And I think that song, Apologize, like you just know it.
Yeah. Yeah. That took 4 years for it to finally come out. We started, I just didn't want to be a solo artist. My career started on TRL as like winning a record deal. And
that was for Lance.
Yeah, for the freelance talent search. And I quickly realized that I didn't know what my sound was necessarily. I just knew that I loved writing songs. I was a reluctant frontman. I was I was more of somebody in the choir, not the lead singer. So I think part of me doing the band starting the band was the impetus was I can kind of safety in numbers, right? Safety in numbers. And at the time in 2000, call it 3, there were so many white dudes with guitars. That was the era of white. You're a white dude, you can sing, pick up a guitar, let's go. So it was John Mayer and it was Ryan Cabrera and it was Howie Day and it was, the list goes on and on and on. And then not to mention the Timberlakes of the world who were killing it. And I knew I was no match for that as a solo artist. And so that, and all I listened to at the time was like Oasis, Blur, U2, the Police. So put 2 and 2 together. It's like, let's start a band. And then it was just a hell of a lot of rejection and hard work. Yeah.
So this is, you have the TRL performance. There is a Timbaland production deal after that point.
Correct.
And that's for around over a year.
Yeah, 2 years. He saw me on the TRL in a 10-second window. I did the TRL thing, thought I had won a record deal because that's how it was presented. Mm-hmm. Found out when my attorney finally read the fine print, you won the opportunity to win a record. It was a bait and switch. No shade to Lance or any of those guys because I love Lance eternally because he gave me the exposure and he's a great guy. I just didn't know what I was getting into. So I spent a year just taking meetings, being flown to LA and New York back and forth, meeting with record labels and recording demos with different people. And apparently for that entire year, Timbaland had been trying to track me down.
Wow.
And that's the way he tells the story is I spent a year trying to get your phone number. Which this is before you could just DM people on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Or TikTok. So he tracks me down, calls me. I'm living in Nashville at the time. We talk for 3 hours, first phone call. And I find out his favorite band is the Cranberries. I was just like thrown by the music he listened to. I couldn't believe how into, it was just not what you expected. And 2 or 3 months later, we end up drafting a deal. I get signed to Timbaland. And I'm signed to him. The 2 years that I'm signed to Timbaland are the 2 years where he did both Justin Timberlake albums, Nelly Furtado, and Missy Elliott Under Construction. So
you were in the room for
I'm in the room for a lot of that.
Incredible.
I'm in the room when he does everything from that to, like the day he did Cry Me a River, I was at the studio. He texts me, hey, you need to show, you come through. So I roll up to the studio. It's like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. And I walk in and Justin's there and Tim's there and he plays me Cry Me a River for the first time. They had just finished it. And I was just like, it rocked it rocked me to the core. I was like, I have to level up. Oh my God. He's I told him, I was like, you're going to completely change the pop music with this song.
Set the bar.
He reset the bar. And, I was with him when he was doing, it's and but tip it down yet. Throw your thing down, flip it and reverse it. Like during that time period, all the Nelly Furtado stuff. I wasn't in the room as much for that, but I would hear stuff as it was being made because I knew Demo, Timbaland's mixer was a guy named Demo, short for like Dimitrianis. He was like a Greek guy, and he ended up recording Nelly Furtado for that whole album. They hit it off and they got married. So I he would play me stuff whenever I'd show up to the studio because they were, I think, low key dating at that time. So yeah, I heard all that stuff for 2 years. I was signed to him. Started Republic. I called it Republic at the time. During that time frame, call it. I was signed to him 2002, 2003. Those 2 years, and sent him the demo for Apologize. And I had rebranded myself as Republic. And he went. I mean, he absolutely snapped on the demo. He loved it. And then we just kind of, it's weird. We didn't go on bad terms. My deal expired. And I wasn't eager to renew it because I was now getting traction within LA, playing all the clubs on the Sunset Strip. I mean, we paid to play. Like my manager probably went $5,000 in debt paying for us to play these shows. We played every venue in LA. The whole Sunset Strip, like, grinded out until label scouts show up at the shows. We did that for 3 years.
Was it difficult to get traction at first?
Oh my God. It was I feel like we decided to start this band at the best and worst time. It was the worst time in the sense that LA was flooded in it's really 04, 05, 06. That was the arc of this band. God, no, 4 years, 04, 05, 06, 07. It took 4 years of us grinding it out in California. And what would happen is we would make sure that we had a show once a month, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, every month pretty much for that time period.
Wow.
The Whiskey, the Roxy, Viper Room. I've played the Viper Room 12 times. The Mint, the Derby, every venue. Then we expanded out. APA, Evan Bogart came and saw our show, and who you know, and who's super high up at the Recording Academy now, and his dad is Neil Bogart, who started Casablanca Records. Evan and I came to a show, and he just heard about us, or he ran into me at In-N-Out with a friend of mine from high school. I said, "Hey, I'm in a band. It's called Republic. We have some shows coming up." And they came to a show. He was a junior agent at APA, the booking agency, and he came in with a high school buddy of mine, or elementary school buddy named Brett Stair. They came in, watched the show, came up to us after the show, said, "Can we be your agents? Can we start booking you?" And so this is everyone now.
Random meet.
Totally random meet that led to us getting the agents. And then Evan knew everybody in LA. He's the one who brought all these A&Rs to our shows.
Wow.
So it was just by being up in the mix in LA, by virtue of that it happened. We probably went 9 months without anyone. So it was me. I would literally call the Viper Room at 12 and then just keep calling until I got someone on the phone. Or I'd drive up to the Roxy, wait for someone to walk in the door. How do we play here? How do we book a show here? And that's literally how we did it. I was our booker. And then they're like, you got to sell at least 50 tickets or you have to owe us the balance, because they make money off beer and alcohol. And so if you don't sell, a lot of people don't know this, but like in LA and a lot of major cities, if you don't bring at least 40, 50 people, that debt that you owe them, and you have to, like, when you settle at the end of the night, instead of them paying you $200, you pay them $200. It sucks. And so that's what we did for like a year until APA started booking us. And they said, "Hey, you're a California-based band now." We technically kind of started in Colorado Springs, but really the majority of everything was in LA. They said, you should expand outside of LA. So I say that it sucked in 04, 05, 06 because this is right before MySpace blew up. MySpace being the precursor, the first big social media platform prior to Facebook, prior to TikTok and Instagram. And so for the first 3 years, the only way anyone knew that you had a show, I literally would go to Kinko's with my guitar player, throw in $20, $30, and we would make 1,000 copies of a post, right? A bill. And we would go around to light poles and palm trees and staple them.
Wow.
And they would get torn down 2 hours later. We would we would crash parties off Melrose and just walk in with a stack of cards and say, "Hey, come see our band, come see our band, come see our band, come see our band." And just constant embarrassing rejection. It was terrible. And I thought, but our manager at the time was like, "This is how bands break. You play every nasty, gnarly little gig you can, and until somebody sees you, and then you build a real fan base. You build fans. And so that's what we did for 3 years. We started playing up and down the California coast, like San Diego to Northern California, everywhere in between, like everywhere. And then we get signed by Columbia.
Yes.
2005, I think. 2005, we get signed by Columbia. We showcased for 6 different labels. A lot of them were like, "You're not a lead singer. You guys aren't going to work." Like
were any of them like apologizes in a hit or like?
I had somebody. Yeah, I had one I won't say who it is because he's dead wrong. But like we had one guy who went out of his way to be like, "By the way, that song's just okay. It's not a hit." They were assholes. I mean, we had a lot of that. A lot of rejection, a lot of what's called, it's funny, I don't even think they do this anymore, but it was called showcasing. If you were an artist that had a buzz anywhere in the country, you would be flown into LA or New York and you would do what's called a showcase for a record label.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
And that's what you did. And sometimes you would, in rare instances, such as one of our instances, we were in the bottom of the Key Club, which is now One Oak, and below the Key Club is called the Cat Club. And we set up down there, and our management had us do 4 showcases in a row. So it went like A&M Records, Octone Records, Hollywood Records, Columbia Records, all in a rotating door of auditioning. It's soul destroying because there's no one else in the room but a guy kind of on his phone, like with a black leather jacket, just kind of watching you. And then we auditioned for.
It was one of those lame phones back then.
Oh, right? It was a BlackBerry. Yeah. It was like a thick old BlackBerry. And then we had like. We did showcases for producers. Once we got, so Columbia Records bites, right? Velvet Hammer, which is an imprint of Columbia Records. They bite and they say, okay, like Thanksgiving of I think it was Thanksgiving of 05 or 04. I remember going home and being like, we have a record deal with Columbia. It was like the day before Thanksgiving, 2004. So we signed, early in the year, we signed a deal with Columbia Records and Velvet Hammer. We auditioned for like 6 different producers. Everybody from Steve Lillywhite, who had just won Producer of the Year for U2. We auditioned for him. We auditioned for a guy from Montreal, I'm spacing on his name, who did like Sarah McLachlan and a bunch of Canadian bands. Anyway, a bunch of different, Eric Valentine, the big rock producer at the time. We did, he was like the guy. Everything he touched turned to gold at that time period. And then Greg Wells. Greg Wells had done like not a lot of stuff that made sense for us, but he was a brilliant musician. Yeah. And he's a polymath. He was obsessively passionate about it. And that's where we wanted to go, is whoever's most passionate. And so we ended up making the album with him the second half of 2005. We had it on release for 666. Which great. Auspicious, which I should have just read into that and just taken that as a bad sign.
Would not have been great.
Yeah, would not have been. We booked Coachella as like one of the bands in 2006
with another person who was on Columbia, right, at the time.
Yes, there was Katy Perry, and I mean it was a weird. I mean, it was an interesting Coachella because we played like at 12:30 in the afternoon. It was terrible, but on the Sahara tent. But it was the year that Daft Punk headlined.
Wow,
it was Daft Punk and Madonna, so it was a crazy. Party. It was insane. And by the time our Coachella rolls around and we are ready to launch the album, everyone at Columbia Records, top down, gets fired and replaced by a bunch of British executives come over. There's a cleaning of the house at Columbia Records, and we've made an album. It's taken us 4 years to get this far. We're ready to go. And we get told that we're getting dropped because they are tightening the budgets, and any act that is not generating money at this point, they're just gonna call it a loss and write it off. And so they dropped us. They dropped Katy Perry. They dropped Jonas Brothers. All of us
on the way to Coachella.
This is the week of Coachella.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the week. Like, I'm going to Coachella realizing that we are done, and which was really depressing. So we racked up a huge hotel bill and like broke stuff. I mean, we went nuts. We literally went nuts. We destroyed the hotel. We did all the stupid cliches.
What was going through your head at that time?
Going through my head is absolute panic and depression. I'm the only thing I had going for me at that point. I'm now how old was I? 26, I think. I'm 26. And I'm already about to age out in my mind of like, how old is too old to break? In my mind, you shouldn't be over 25. That's where my head was at. It's probably to some degree still the case, right? In pop music. And the only saving grace I had is that at this point in time, I was really getting traction as a producer writer for a multitude of artists. The only thing distracting me from it was OneRepublic. And I, for the 06 was the first year that I made any kind of legitimate money. Like I think I made maybe a couple $100,000 that year from doing songs for movies, TV, anything. Just anything you wanted. You want me to do a song for a Whirlpool washer dryer? I'll do it. And so I knew that I could make a living doing music. And I had a song that J-Lo was putting out any month. Like she was about to put out I did her first single that year, Do It Well. And I was like, all right, I've got J-Lo's single coming. I got Natasha Bedingfield. Like I was going through a mental inventory of here are the good things happening in my life to distract me from everything I've put into this band for the 5 years of my 20s is going up in flames. And I was livid with the record label, livid at Columbia because there was no legitimate reason.
Because your album's about to come out in 2 months.
Our album was coming out, in 2 months. Our album was coming out 2 months later. We pulled the plug on that, obviously. I didn't like the date 666 anyway. I mean, all like jinxy stuff aside and Satan and all that. 666, growing up has just never been my favorite number. So that was fine. But then it triggered me to do something reactive that ended up changing the course of our career. I was so mad that I drove home from our manager's house, Missy Worth. I drove, who's a great manager and wasn't her fault, has nothing to do with her. I drove straight home from her house in the hills to my little apartment, went on MySpace, which at this point had blown up. And Columbia refused to let us put our songs on MySpace because we were signed and they didn't want anyone to hear them for free.
So they're trying to shelf.
Mm-hmm. So I said, suck it. And went straight to MySpace, went to the OneRepublic page, changed our status from signed to unsigned, independent. And immediately I uploaded Apologize and Stop and Stare. And then I just kind of left it alone. And then within a few days.
Wow.
And then I was like, I'm going to write a song. I'm going to write something about, I wrote a song that night because I was so mad. And I was like, then we had a big band meeting and my guitar player was like, hey, I'm going to move back to Chicago.
Is that
Zach? Yeah. If this doesn't work. Now, this is, at this point, probably, we're approaching the summer and I kind of made everybody agree. I said, guys, we made it this far. Give me 12 months, period. 12 months. Because there was enough label interest. Everyone knew that I could write a song at that point. Like this guy's dangerous when it comes to writing. Like something's going to go, but maybe it won't be the band. And I kind of pleaded with everyone to give me a year. I wasn't leaving in LA anyway. So, but a couple guys that were trying to splinter off and they all said, okay, we'll give you 12. We'll give you it was like next May. We were in May. We'll give you till next May. So I changed our status to unsigned inside of, and at this point, I left this out of the first part of this whole journey. When I was signed to Timbaland, I actually ended up getting signed briefly to Capitol Records in a solo deal.
Wow.
They were doing an imprint for Tim and they flew me out to New York, heard a couple of my songs. We're like, okay. Cause Tim was like, if you want me to do an imprint, everybody wanted him. Everybody was offering Tim the world. If you wanted Timbaland, you have to bring with him his two artists. And it was me, and I forget who the other artist is, but it was, you got to sign these two. And they agreed to sign me basically off the back of Tim. So I had already gotten that deal. That went for 9 months. So I ended up getting a solo deal. This is like prior to all this, thinking finally, okay, I get a chance to actually turn this this record deal that I won on TRL turn into something. And then as I remember it, something went really bad and Tim and Capitol's relationship broke apart before I was ever able to do anything. So technically when I got dropped by Columbia, that was the second time I was dropped.
Wow.
That was the second time I was dropped. And within 60 days of putting our music on MySpace, this was my last ditch effort. Like everyone says that we don't deserve to have a record deal. Let's let the public decide. Let the world decide, not record labels and A&Rs and opinions in LA. Let's let the masses of the world decide on the internet. And I thought that was to me, I got MySpace and I got social media. It clicked with me in 1 second. I was like, oh, this is deadly. Like now nobody can stop me because I have the internet now. And that's genuinely how I viewed it. Within 60 days or less, it was probably like 30 days of posting Apologize, Stop and Stare on MySpace, we were the number one unsigned band in the world, artist in the world.
Incredible.
And I remember it specifically because the number one artist for like 3 months unsigned with Bubbly was Colby Calais. And I actually remember, and I knew her because she was in the studio when we did all the OneRepublic demos.
Crazy.
She was just a friend of the guy that owned the studio. And I remember I had to text her one time because we were like number 2 sitting there with Apologize for like 2 or 3 weeks. She had been signed for a year. Bubbly had already been out on radio for like 6 months. And I was like, Colby, just like, can you do me a favor? We were friendly. I was like, could you change your status to signed since you are signed and we're not, and you're crushing us with this Bubbly song? And she did. She literally just changed herself. She's like, oh my God, I totally spaced, and like changed her status. That was a big deal back in that time in MySpace, unsigned, signed. There was 250 million people on MySpace.
Yeah.
So it was it was TikTok.
100%.
It was TikTok. So she changes her status. We go number 1. The phone rings off the hook. Every label came after us. Every label, including the label that dropped us. And
oh wow, wait,
Columbia came after us. And A&R, another, to his credit, he didn't know. He was a new A&R guy. And I was like, I went off on the phone. I was less than pleasant. I was just like, you need to like get with it, man. I was like, you guys, left hand, right hand, you don't even know what the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. You just dropped us 2 months ago. Like now you're saying you want to sign? Are you out of your mind? And I made him feel really stupid. I don't know who that guy is. I've never remembered who that guy is, but I just said, tell everyone at Sony, at Columbia, that like, there is like, I don't care if whoever was running it at the time, if he called me himself, like there's not a world where we ever do that deal with Columbia. Like we're gone. And so we went with Interscope because at the time they had No Doubt and they had U2. And in 2006, that was like royalty. So that's why we went to Interscope.
So going back real quick, what was the story of how Apologize was made?
It was 2000. It was, I mean, the original idea, this is so long ago. It was like winter, like February of 2003. I was living at my dad's place in Colorado and bouncing between, this is the time when Timbaland was flying me everywhere. Mm-hmm. I was just literally, I lived in Nashville technically, but I was staying with my dad in Colorado at the time because my girlfriend was in Colorado. I was getting flown to Miami for weeks on end, New York for weeks on end to be with Tim. And I'm home and I'm realizing that I don't want to be a solo artist. And at that moment, it's like a light bulb went off and I was like, I need to make music that sounds like a band. And I literally sat down at my dad's piano and just kind of closed my eyes. And I had been writing for a long time at that point, but I wanted to do something that just sounded different, not pop. Like I didn't want it to be uber pop. I wanted it to have like, I was chasing melancholy. It's the dead of winter in Colorado. It's like, it's melancholic to begin with. It's gray and cloudy and freezing. And the chords of Apologize, it's just the first thing that I played. I wasn't thinking mathematically or anything. I just da 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 da, and then
iconic.
Yeah, and then I knew I had that loop, and I was like, oh, that feel. I was chasing a feeling. Mm-hmm. I was chasing a feeling, and the feeling of Apologize, of the opening line. I had the opening line in 1 second. I'm holding on your rope, got me 10 feet off the ground. I'm hearing what you say, but I just can't make a sound. And I kind of knew, okay, this has got to be about heartbreak. This is somebody that broke my heart. I had plenty of stuff to pull from. I had pretty much, at that point, if you're 23 years old, like, you've had your heart broken. You should, at that point, if you've tried, then you've had your heart broken. So I had enough to pull from different relationships. And I had the chorus pretty quickly thereafter. And I just liked how simple it was. And And that night I was so excited. Funny enough, I went to see Coldplay the day I wrote Apologize. I went to see Coldplay.
Wait, that's so cool.
Yeah, they were playing the Fillmore in Denver, which is like a 3,000, 4,000 cap venue.
Wow.
Rush of Blood to the Head had just come out.
Wow.
And they came back and did like 2 or 3 nights at Red Rocks. But like that particular day, I remember I drove up, picked my girlfriend up at the time, who I ended up marrying, and we went to see Coldplay at the Fillmore, which is still, I've seen them 2 or 3 times. The best concert I've seen was them at the Fillmore, because it was you're watching a nuclear missile take off. And it's such a small venue. I was 5 feet from them. So it was great. But I had written the song, not ironically, just coincidentally that morning. I had come up with the first verse and the chorus. And then I went to, I didn't really know how to operate Pro Tools and computer stuff that well. Mm-hmm. So like even I had just bought a new computer, something as simple as a click track just to keep tempo. I didn't know how to turn it on. So I programmed a beat on my MPC, that MPC actually, that the original beat to that song did castanets and whatever. And I did that simply to use as a guide for the piano, like as a click track. I used this kind of hip hop beat because I didn't have a click track. Mm-hmm. And it was a complete accident. And then when I imported, I recorded the beat off that MPC into my basic little Pro Tools setup, played the Korg Triton piano on top of the beat, and I sat there and I was like, this is wild. I just remember my reaction being like, what did I just do? Like, mm-hmm. And I remember I worked for probably 6 weeks or longer easily on the, it took me 6 months to finish it because I didn't know what the bridge was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And then at that time, bridges were always vocal and lyrics. And I kind of broke that rule and just did a guitar solo. And to this day, it's the only OneRepublic song that has a guitar solo. But the bridge on Apologize is a guitar solo, which is crazy.
Stop and Stare? Does that have a guitar solo?
Stop and Stare is guitar, but I'm still singing over it.
Okay.
On Apologize, it's just guitar. It's just down, and that's me playing the solo. But I worked forever on the verse lyrics because I wanted every lyric to be a metaphor and every lyric to be like this super visual thing, and opposites. Mm-hmm. So I just had a certain style of writing at the time that I was sticking to, come hell or high water, and it worked on that record. And by the time it was done, I remember being in my dad's basement and kind of jumping up and down. I listened to it for probably 2 hours on loop because for the first time, after 4 or 5 years of searching, for the first time ever, I was like, this is me. This is what I sound like. And when I played it, and my girlfriend had heard every song I had ever written, it was all over the map, genre-wise. It was everywhere. And I got in the car, pick her up to go to the concert. I go, I want to play some. This is the one I've been talking about. I play it for her, and she gets to the end of it, and she goes, this is you. This is the sound you've been looking for. This is the sound of your band. This, she's like, I feel like this will be #1 on radio everywhere in the world. Just didn't know it'd take 4 years. So that's kind of the backstory to that.
Was the song completed by that point?
No. Yes, it was. The arrangement remained intact. All the lyrics remained intact. I didn't have a second verse yet. So that was kind of open. And I wrote the second verse. Took me months because again, the lyrics was just so, they had to be like, they almost had to fall from the sky. Mm-hmm. But all the sounds, we ended up improving on the version with Greg Wells. He knew I wanted strings. I did a lot of cinematic, classical sounding stuff at the time, and I was obsessed with strings. And so we brought in live strings, doing all that stuff. So originally it was my synth strings, right? Wow. And the piano, like the original demo's on YouTube, my OG demo, and I think it sounds terrible now, but at the time it sounded amazing. And everything I was using was from the Korg Triton. Mm-hmm. All the original sounds were the Korg Triton, the piano, the strings, the bass, everything. I knew that keyboard inside and out. So yeah, that was it. I mean, really what Greg did is make it sound like a finished record. Like he knocked out of the park.
So 4 years pass. You decide to upload both of those songs onto MySpace.
Yep.
Takes 60 days and it explodes.
Yep. 03. It would have been, 3.5 years. roughly, 3.5 years after writing the song, I upload it to MySpace and Stop and Stare, and that's what triggered. They went viral. I don't know what else to say. They literally went viral. And I would work with artists, up and coming boy bands and pop artists and urban acts and you name it, rappers, and I'd be there as a producer, and they'd be like, yo, are you the guy on that Apologize song? And people knew from MySpace that like that was me. That was my song. And that was the first time I ever experienced anything like that. And it's, it's funny because now with TikTok, it's the same phenomenon, just at a much, much higher volume.
Definitely.
In a much louder
and
volume.
And
a lot more.
Yeah.
Way, way more. Yeah.
So someone returns though, and someone sees that the song is going viral.
Yeah.
From back who we talked about earlier.
Yeah. So somebody, I think you're probably you might be referring Timbaland. Yeah. Timbaland sees that the song, he's watching MySpace like everybody else because he's up with culture at all times. And Tim sees the song popping off on MySpace and reaches out to me and is like, hey, I'd love to do a deal with you. With Mosley Music. I'm finishing my deal at Interscope, my imprint. I did Nelly Furtado there. I'm doing No Doubt, this, that, and the other. And I said, okay. And to be quite honest, I had no intention at that point at re-signing with him. Not because I didn't like him. I didn't want to be in any type of JV deal at all because of what happened with Velvet Hammer in Columbia. Except that he was at Interscope. And I took that genuinely as a sign. Because then I went, okay, this is the smarter move. Because we could have gone straight to Interscope without Tim. We could have gone straight to any label. Although Jimmy Iovine at that point probably would have, he's a savage. He would have been like, if you want to sign here, you're going to sign with Tim. Like, that's just how he was. But my line of thinking was, we had offers from RCA, we had offers from Island Def Jam, from everybody at that time. And my thinking was, the most powerful man in the music industry right now is Timbaland. Full stop. No one's bigger. No one's more powerful. So if we're getting Tim and all his cachet, and it's on the label we want to be on, like, this is Christmas, man. Come on. So that, once we thought about it, we're like, you know what? I'll sign that deal 10 times in a row. And then the coolest thing about Timbaland, one of the coolest things he ever did, which still blows people's minds. Like, when I tell songwriters this now, who are used to songs being split 5 ways, and now songwriting is so ratchet that if some dude is in the room or booked the session at his studio, even if he didn't write the song, he's trying to get publishing on the song. People writing themselves into countless records they never even touched. And it's just the nature of, it's just like fighting over scraps right now. That songwriting now, Tim in 2007, right before the song came out, the song came out in September of 2007. In like July, his manager hits me and goes, hey, we got to talk about Apologize for publishing. The publishing on Apologize. And
is that for the remix version?
Yeah, for the remix version.
So Timbaland, when did he decide to remix it?
He remixed it. He knew that he wanted to put it on his album on Timbaland. What do they call the Shock Value? Shock Value 2 or whatever. Shock Value 1. He wanted to put it on the album. It was never going to be a single, ever. In fact, they promised me it wouldn't be, because I told the label, guys, I don't want a remix of what should be our third single becoming our first single, because it will confuse everybody on what we are, which is exactly what happened. The blessing and the curse of Apologize. It went #1 everywhere in the world. It absolutely didn't really break us as a band. Stop and Stare broke us more than Apologize did.
Wow.
Because everyone thought that we went to Germany. I remember it went #1 in Germany quickly. We fly to Germany. I'm in Berlin or Hamburg. I go to a radio station and 5 white dudes walk in to the radio station, and the lady goes, Who are you guys? We're OneRepublic. She goes, oh, wait, what? And I was like, what's going on? She's like, I thought you were either a black, I'm quoting her, a black boy band, or that you were just a solo black artist.
Wow.
And she says that to me, and my guitar player goes, sorry to disappoint you. Like, everything, and then I remember turning to our manager going, oh shit, is this what we did? And then one station after another, interview after another, everyone going, "Oh God, so you guys are a band?" And it, Timbaland was so big too that a lot of the credit just went to him. Like people thought it was his song. And the truth of the matter is, he when they called me about the publishing splits, I was just grimacing. I was ready to just be like, I'm going to get creamed on this. They're going to take half the song or more. And the manager calls and goes, Tim doesn't want to take any publishing, buddy.
Wow.
He's not going to touch it. He's like, it's your song. You wrote it. And you played him that song like 2 years ago. Like, he's not trying to take food off your table. He produced the remix. You wrote the song. Like, amazing. So he's not taking any publishing. I just want to put that out there for everybody watching. That's Timbaland. He could have taken 2/3 of the publishing if he wanted to. He had all the leverage in the world. And he said, I didn't write the song. I'm not taking any publishing. And it was that clean. And he let me keep 100% of that record. And that changed my life. And he said, he's like, you need it more than I do. It's like, so, I'll give Tim props to the rest of my life for that. Because that was a life changer for me. That's how I bought a house.
Was it smooth sailing from there on out with Stop and Stare and everything like that?
It was smooth sailing with Stop and Stare. Yes, that went, we were in the UK the day that hit number one. And I remember because it was out the same time as Leona Lewis's second single. And I had written Bleeding Love, which was at number one for like months in the UK. And then Stop and Stare blocked her second single from hitting number one. Wow. And I didn't know that because I didn't watch charts. I didn't watch charts at all. I didn't watch charts for probably 3 years. So my managers always tell me, "Oh, your song's going top 5 this week." I'm like, "Cool." I never looked at any of that. I didn't know how to look at it. And so Stop and Stare was the reason that we're still a band, because I told the band if our only hit after all this time is a remix of what was going to be our third single. Our first single was going to be Mercy. Second single was going to be Stop and Stare. Third single was going to be Apologize. And then we had a song called All We Are, and we had a song called I can't even remember it, whatever, but whatever. We had like 3 or 4 singles mapped out. And because we were going to break as, and this is the thing that a lot of people don't know, for those out there who care or don't care, we were an alternative rock band on Columbia. If you want to know what our sound actually was, and the album that we were going to put out will blow your mind compared to what we are now or what we've evolved to. Apologize forced that evolution. We had to change the entire track list on our album because of Apologize. The remix was so big, and we were now a top 40 act. K-Rock, the program director, we were breaking on K-Rock, right? Our first single was going to be Mercy, which is a rock record, and then Stop and Stare. And if you listen to like music at that time, that was very much alternative rock, whatever. And Apologize got so big that the program director of K-Rock, I'll never forget this because it really bummed me out, called our manager and said, "We're so sorry, we can no longer play OneRepublic." And our manager was like, "What?" And that to me was devastating. K-Rock, when you live in LA and you're a rock band, you want to be on K-Rock. And we said, "Why?" Because it's too big. Wow. Top 40 has claimed you and you can't go back. Like, they have claimed you, you can't go back. And it was a straight up, we will not play you anymore. We will not. And I was devastated. Our first single, which the first spins we ever got were K-Fog up in like San Francisco and then the Rock Station in San Diego. Our first single on Columbia Records, which barely came out before all hell broke loose, is called Sleep. And if you go into YouTube and type in OneRepublic Sleep, it's a 5.5 minute crazy like guitar wailing alternative Jeff Buckley sounding record. Like it's nuts when you think that's what we were, but that's what we were. We were an alternative rock band. And Apologize got so big, the remix, that we had this like panic moment when it turned into a hit. We were like, oh, no. We didn't want it to be a hit yet. We weren't ready for that yet. Oh shit, we have to redo our whole album because now everyone thinks we're the Apologize band. And so we probably ditched 5 or 6 songs and quickly wrote 3 or 4 other songs to fit with the mold of what Apologize was forming. And it was like, how do you re-engineer a band after the fact? And that's literally what we did. We were in survival mode. I'll do anything at this point. You get to that point of desperation. I don't care, whatever it is. I'm throwing out all my preciousness is going out the window. I'm not going to fail after this point. I failed too much. I can't afford it anymore. we got to do to win. Let's keep the motor on. Let's keep the engine running. So that's really what we did.
So Apologize has crazy success, then leads to Stop and Stare at the same time, Leona Lewis, Bleeding Love.
Yeah.
And it just
snowballs.
Keeps going and going and going. And I would love to talk about like the behind the scenes stories of all of them, because I'm interested in all of them. But in terms of all the songs that you've worked on, which story connects with you the most?
In that time period, let's say, I mean, because each one, we've had songs that have been like tent poles for how I'm feeling at any given point. Counting Stars was very much about how I was feeling at that point in my life. By the time Apologize came out, I was way over the relationships that that song was about. So it was about basically two different girls who had wrecked me in like one in high school, one in college. And, I kind of had buried that by the time it came out. Stop and Stare was very much relatable to me. It's always been relatable. Because it was the song that kept us together as a band. Because I told the band, if we only have one hit on this album and it's Apologize, I'm done. Like I will literally, we're going to travel the world for a year and a half, which we did, but I will break up the band and we can start a new band with a different name, because I can't be the remix to Apologize band. Like I just won't do it. I have just enough pride that I was like, I can't be the one hit wonder guys. So Stop and Stare kept us together as a band because it sounded like us. The video was darker and cooler and what I wanted, and it represented, Anthony Mandler directed, who's brilliant. And it was a rock record, and that's what I wanted to connect with. And also the lyrics on Stop and Stare represented all of my teenage years, my childhood up until my early 20s. The entire song is just, get me the hell out of here. Get me out of here. This town is killing me. It's holding me back. And I'm sitting here watching my life go by. I'm Stop and Stare. I think I'm moving, but I go nowhere, and I'm becoming what I can't be, which is somebody who's complacent, who isn't doing the things they said they were going to do in their life. And so Stop and Stare, the lyrics on that I'm very proud of, because it represents exactly how I felt. And I know that when we sing it, how many people resonate with that no matter where we are. And like most OneRepublic songs throughout the years, I would have a chorus that I wrote during a rehearsal or by myself. And all I'd have is a chorus that was like, I would always go for the chorus first, try to have a hit chorus first. Secrets, same deal. Good Life, same deal. I could go song by song. Counting Stars, same deal.
Which was originally for a Beyonce.
Oh, well, it was written during a Beyonce camp. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, for Beyonce. But I knew once I got 10 minutes in, I knew this is not a Beyonce record.
Do you know if your songs are going to be a hit before they come out? Do you have a gauge on that?
You have an idea. Yes. You have a gut intuition about it. There are some rare instances where your song ends up in what I call a perfect storm. You try to manufacture these as much as possible, especially now. And I've said this probably in our previous visit, where I have to write 10 times as many songs in 2022. This is a fact. I write 10 times as many songs as I ever wrote between 2005 and 2016, 11-year period. I write 10 times more songs now to achieve probably 1/3 the amount of hits, because I'm competing against the volume of songs that are coming out, 100,000 songs a day now, right? It's crazy. So what you try to do, sometimes you just get lucky, you try to create a perfect storm. And I'll give you an example of like what that means. Like in the last 3 years, I've had 2 perfect storm records. I've attempted 5 or 6. I've had 2 perfect storm records. I knew, and when you ask, I'm answering the question like, do you know a song's a hit or not? You can have a song that everybody in the room, A&R label, you, your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, everybody thinks that's a smash, right? And that's all well and good. Used to, prior to TikTok, prior to the social media explosion of the last 3 years, used to be that if you had a great song that everybody thought was a hit, from the top of the label on down to you, to the mailman, it might take time, but there was about an 80% success rate in my history that it turned into a hit, that it actually was going to be a hit. And I've had this conversation with presidents of record labels in the last 2 months. Ryan, used to be 4 out of 5 times we were right. If everyone in the room agreed that a record was a hit on fill in the blank artist, didn't matter. Selena, J-Lo to Ed Sheeran, whatever. Like, if everybody agreed, there was about a 80% chance that it actually was a hit, right? So that's how you end up with those jobs, because you're more right. You're right more than everybody else, and your instinct on music is what the world wants to hear, and that's kind of always been my MO. Is I have my ears. I have the listening. I have like the ears of a 15-year-old girl. You know what I mean? Like, that's honestly the only thing I can brag about is that, like, my reaction to songs is more similar to a teenager than it is anyone that's 40 years old. Like, way more.
Which is great.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny to say that, but that's the truth. I'd much rather know what a 14, 15-year-old is gonna click with than a 40-year-old. Like, no offense. And so, I've, for better or worse, made my career off of that and tapping into what the average person wants to hear, not the elitists. The elitists can, whatever. They're always going to be elitist. But knowing what a hit is now, it's not just, okay, everyone in the room agrees that we all have goosebumps at the same time. Used to be, that's it. You all have goosebumps. We all have goosebumps. All right, let's go. Right? Bleeding Love, that was that situation. That was a Perfect Storm record. She's coming off of, if you cut Bleeding Love on just an average artist or just a nobody, it wouldn't have worked. The Perfect Storm was, you have Clive Davis and Simon Cowell backing the same artist at the same time at the peak of both of their careers in terms of A&R executives. You have Simon Cowell with the single biggest television show in all of Europe with the X Factor, launching it like off the back of winning on the premiere episode of the following season, right? Nobody could understand that the sheer amount of eyeballs and ears on that one episode. We broke the Beatles record in the first week sales with Bleeding Love. First week sales, we were some like 50-year-old Beatles record. I think it was like 470,000 copies in week one. And in the UK alone. Yeah. So he knew, and he kept telling me, there's a perfect storm. You don't get many of these. It's a perfect storm. Another example of perfect storm record is, it's not just about the song being in the hit, it's culture. And the only thing that matters now is culture. It's not how good is the song. I could point to 2 or 3 songs right now in the top 20 that aren't really amazing, but like, they're smashing it because they resonated with culture somehow, right? And so now, to create a perfect storm, Jonas Brothers, Sucker. I knew they were coming out, that they had gotten back together after 7 years. Wendy Goldstein knew at Republic Records, and about 10 other people knew in the world. It was very bottled up. But what I knew that the song felt like a hit. Wendy thought it was a smash at Republic. Gary Spangler, who runs radio, thought it was a smash. Monty and Avery Littman, who run Republic, thought it was a smash. And the perfect storm of it was twofold. You have a global army of idle Jonas Brother fans who have not been fed new music in 7 years. They were all teenagers when Joe Bros were smashing. They're now in their early 20s, early to mid 20s. And you have Joe coming off of DNCE success with Cake by the Ocean. Nick coming off of solo success. Jealous. And both of those armies of fans combined, those were all the things that I was looking at when I was considering, does this song make sense for this band right now? And same with the label. We're going to get one big push. It's going to be super quiet. And then all of a sudden, Joe Bros are back and here's the song, boom, go. Like, and if you just do something like that, like, it's like if you walk up to a middle school right now and park a van outside and then open it up and bring out PS5s, you're going to have chaos, right? Everyone's going to go, free PS5s, what? Like, and that's basically what it was. It was a perfect storm. And we knew that if the song was good enough, when you pull all those levers at the same time and the gate opens, you might just have a hit. And that's what we got. And we got the same thing with I Ain't Worried is a perfect storm record. Because have I written better songs? Absolutely. Absolutely, I've written better songs than I Ain't Worried. I love the song. I didn't think much. I wasn't sitting around thinking that was a hit. Perfect Storm. Biggest movie in Tom Cruise's career. Biggest movie of the calendar year. Top 3 movie of all time, probably, grossing. Coming out on Memorial Day after a 2.5-year pandemic when people can finally go to the theater. That's called a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm. And then Lil Nas, That's What I Want.
I was hoping to bring that one up.
Perfect storm.
I'm meeting Blake tomorrow.
Perfect storm. It's a perfect storm. And Blake will tell you, like, this, you probably bring this up with Blake. Like, how important is culture in records right now? He'll tell you, oh, everything. It's everything. It's everything. And he's right. And it didn't used to be. It's just a great song, a hit. If you wrote a hit, and especially if you like had connections and I knew that if I had a hit on my hard drive, what did I say earlier? 80% chance. There was an 80% chance. It was just a matter of time. It's gonna be a hit. You can't say that anymore. Culture you have to like have a car crash with culture at some point with your song for it to go all the way. It's made it incredibly hard. And you just have to be smarter. You have to be smarter and you have to kind of move quicker. Lil Nas, that's what I want. I knew that he had Montero coming, and I also knew that with
you actually said that people told you not to work with him at first.
People told me not to work with him. I won't say who, but like some really people that I love that are respectable. I get it. Old Town Road, guy, first song you've ever written, breaks the all-time Billboard record. Everyone was like, it's a fluke. It's a fluke. You can't repeat it again. You can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. And yet he did. And, I just knew after working with him, there's something different about this guy. I can't put my finger on, but he's just something different about this guy. And he's such a I keep bringing back the word culture. He's such a cultural savage. This guy is the internet. Like literally he's Morpheus or Neo, right? He's the equivalent of Neo because like Nas knows every trend as they're happening. He starts some of them.
He starts them.
He knows, and they go global. And the guy is also the most triggering human being of all time. And I mean that as a compliment. And it wasn't until Nas was on the set of the video for That's What I Want, and he texted me and Blake and everybody else in the group text, guys, serious, this is my favorite video of all time. That's when I was like, okay, I think we got it. I think like he's excited. And of course the video was triggering to the millionth degree. I was like, to the extent that I don't think my mom's ever watched it in its entirety. And it was a perfect storm. You're coming off of 2 global smashes off a guy who the previous year 2 years had written the biggest song of all time, Billboard hit of all time. That's a perfect storm.
Definitely.
So those are really the types of things that you have to be on the lookout for now. As a writer now, I say to other writers I work with and my writers that are assigned to me, I love writing songs. I'm addicted to it. But I have to be so much more cautious about my time now because I have, I can't just arbitrarily be slinging songs and just writing for the sake of writing as much as I love it. I care too much about I can't not care about where they end up. And especially if I write a hit, one that moves me emotionally, like an inside, it's soul destroying to watch. And I'll say it off camera, 2 or 3 instances in the last 3 or 4 years where an absolute smash that I was a part of, failure to launch, right? Because I, by my own poor decision-making, allowed them to end up in homes where they weren't cared for the right way. And as a songwriter, that's like the worst feeling in the world because it's just like, how big something could have been. It's like, it's like if you're a baker, you bake the most beautiful wedding cake you've ever made, and then a freaking dog comes and knocks it down before the wedding. That's how it feels. You're just like, you know what I mean? And so now I have to be way more strategic on, you keep the songwriting process pure. That's the key. You have to approach it pure for the sake of love and doing the best thing you can on every single day. Then you turn into savage mode and you go, okay, now what are we doing? All right, we did the song. Song's amazing. Now what are we doing?
It seems like you have a real relationship with having failure, but using that failure as a driving force to push and carry on with like apologize and just continuing to go for success. Relentless.
You have to be relentless. I've had this conversation with so many, long-standing music industry people, and the pivotal word is relentless. You have to be insatiable and pull every lever that you can every single time. Because if you I'm envious of the writers and the artists who can afford to leave it up for chance and just let it go. And that's an enviable thing because it's a lot less pressure, right? It's just, whatever happens, happens. And I know those, right? It's incredible. I'm just not wired that way. I'm just not wired that way. I'll never will be. It's like if I think that there's one thing I can do to give one of my songs a competitive advantage over anything else, I'm doing it. Like if it's a call, if it's a Zoom, if it's a meeting, if it's sending a bottle of champagne to somebody, whatever it is, because, I think luck happens to people that show up and do the work. And if you show up every day and do the work, at some point, if you don't leave the batter's box, at some point you're going to connect one. And I was texting with Ilya this morning, who did Unholy, the Sam Smith record. And we were talking about, we should go on more, taking more vacations now, this, that, and the other. And he said, he's like, you realize you don't have to write anymore. And I was like, no, I know that obviously, but I was like, but when you actually connect one, there's no better feeling on earth. There's no better feeling on earth than going to, being somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Italy or Japan or wherever, and you hear one of your songs, you realize, okay, that's like, you're in the fabric of global culture. And that's really why everybody does it.
I love hearing all your stories, and it is so incredible. I could listen to them all day. And one day I hope to hear
one day
I
set
hope
aside 9 hours
to hear like the behind the scenes of so many songs. Like Adele, would love to hear that one day. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah, for sure.
Really loved it. Loved chatting again.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Tell Blake hi.
I will.
Yeah.
I also met Harv, and he had a question for you, but I'll send that to you personally.
Yeah. Harv was here yesterday.
I'm doing behind the scenes with Blake of all the different songs in his home tomorrow. So I'll ask
sick.
him about That's What I Want, Lil Nas X, and all of them. Unholy.
Yeah, Unholy was in Jamaica. I know the whole story about that. Nobody thought it was a hit at the time. It was like literally kind of a joke song.
Crazy.
And they're just in Jamaica, just clowning. And that's how Thomas Rhett, Beer Can't Fix, we wrote the song legitimately as a joke song. And that was my first country number one. And it was just literally us goofing around. And then halfway in the process, we were like, the lyrics started getting good. And he goes, I don't know if this is a joke song. He's like, you know what? Luke Bryan would do this. We could picture Luke Bryan. Then we get to the end of the song and he goes, Ryan, don't send it to Luke. He's like, I think I got to do this one. And, 6 months later it came out and it was number one. So you have to, you can't always be focused. If that's the thing is if you go and just like, we got to write a hit today, it's not going to happen. You have to have fun and chase.
Were there any songs that were like accidents?
That were accidents? I would say that any songs that were accidents that became hits. That's a really good question. Let me think. I'll make this the last question. Accidental hit. I feel like there's gotta be one in there. Okay, I would say the closest thing to that, I don't want to paint the picture like I wasn't trying, but I want to say that it's an accident in the sense that I was abhorrently unaware of it being a hit on any level and wrote it so quick because I was trying to impress the person I was writing it for that I could deliver quickly. But I ain't worried. It's recent. That's the most accidental hit I've ever had in my life. Other than, okay, I said that, Good Life. Good Life was me clowning around. I did the chorus real quick and I was pretty dismissive of it. I was like, it's too catchy. I think that was what I said. I said, this is too catchy. I don't want it. I bumped it. I made it a third single because I didn't even want to make it a single. I just kept pushing it back. It's like All the Right Moves, then Secrets, then Good Life. And I didn't want to make it a single. If I Lose Myself was an accident. I wrote it intentionally, but the version that we thought was a hit wasn't. And then Alesso remixed it and it became his biggest hit and it went globally. I think we've done 10 million copies of that song. Like you kind of call that an accident. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, if I'm writing, I'm trying to write something great, but yeah, whenever you're doing a song that just kind of feels like ridiculous or kind of like a joke, that's when you don't know. And to some extent, Sucker, we weren't trying to, there was no bottleneck of pressure where it's like, here's the focus, here's what we got to deliver for this, that, and the other. It was a Thursday. And it was just one of like 10 sessions I did that week. And I think that Frank Dukes, honestly, Frank and Lou probably forgot they even helped with the song. I don't even think they remembered the song until I texted them and said, hey, you have the Jonas Brothers first single. They're like, what song?
Was it difficult to get the Jonas Brothers in the studio for that one?
To get them in together is always trickier than anything, just because they have such disparate schedules. But with that, like, not saying I use a little brother psychology on them occasionally, but it has worked in the past. Like, if Nick loves something, I'll get his vocal on the whole thing and then play for, Joe and Kevin. And then they're like, well, wait a minute. Like, don't you think I should do the second? Sometimes you have to do that, but you have to do that with all bands.
Yeah.
With all bands, you try to get them, you try to, I have a song coming out. When does this air?
Probably not until December or January.
Okay. So I have a song. Great. Then I can say this and you'll be the first to know. I have the single with Tiesto and Tate McRae that is his follow-up to The Motto and The Business, and Tate's first venture into, that kind of crazy big feature land. And I'll say that, given this is airing when it's airing, like, if it smashes, it will be for sure one of the most bizarre hits of my entire career, because I wrote it with Amy Allen and Scott Harris over guitar 2 years ago. Never pitched it to Tiesto. I think I've pitched it twice in my life. And it is the version that is coming out. In a million years, I never would have played it for Tiesto. And I know Tish. I've sent him other shit. He heard the demo and was like, this is a smash. And I was like, it's a what? Like, and I can say now it sounds like a huge record. Like, I hope as this airs that it's actually working. But again, this is one of those great examples. Everyone at Atlantic Records thinks, from Craig Kalman on down, this song's I've talked with them. The song is a smash. I think it is. The management thinks it is. Tish has his pick of every song in the world because he's Tiesto and he's on fire. And this is like the one. So it'll be interesting to see if it is a smash, because if it were 2018, 2017, I'd make a $10,000 bet right now that it is. But because of how weird time it is now, it's like I could play the song right now and that's gonna smash. Or it won't. Like, that's the thing. It's like my manager this morning was like, man, you're on fire. I was like, nope, you're only on fire until the song comes out. I was like, and then there has to be a whole nother series of fires. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Well, we just got the exclusive.
There
Appreciate
you go.
it, Ryan.
Tiesto, 1035, Tate McRae, you heard it first, but really it's already out, so you heard it second. Yeah.
Heard it second. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
For sure.
Excited to do it again soon.